Okay, good luck, everybody. Good luck. Um, as is policy, questions left hanging or submitted, uh, prior to the session get treated first. We eagerly await for some new questions to pop on the screen. But first things first. A question lingering from our session last week that was followed up with some WhatsApps I got from the asker is the following question. If Hasidus, seeks to see the good in everything. Um, by the way, as I'm speaking, I'm recalling that the Chovos Talmidim, who I'll be referring to later in just a couple of minutes, Rav Kohen Miskam of Piasetzna actually brings a source for that idea in the Talmud, that when Rabbi Akiva was not Mulamed Schus on certain biblical figures, said that they will not necessarily be Zochet to Tchias HaMesim. So the Gemara says very cute that not Azav Chasidutse, he left his Chasidus, his righteousness, bringing a clear proof that the description, the title Chosid is for someone that's a Melamed Tzchus, right? So it's the idea of Chasidut, is about being Melamed Tzchus and seeing the good. It has actually a Talmudical source, goes that far back, right? So, but he was asked like this: why is it a Hasidus that looks to see the good in everything? Why didn't they see the potential goodness in the state of Israel and the Zionists and Zionism? That was the question. All right, so I told that person Abe A is his screen name, and again he'll have to get the answer to its question by listening to the recording of this session. I told Abe by WhatsApp at the time, but I want to share it with you now publicly, that is actually a very good way to kind of summarize Rav Kook's approach to the Zionist movement. It was, you could say, was very much a Hasidic approach, so much so that his student, the Nazir, asked him, "What's the difference between your approach to Kabbalah and the way you apply it, and Hasidus?" And he said, "Well, the Hasidus looked at the individual. I looked at the nation." And this is getting a little bit philosophical, very philosophical. That I'll just say it briefly, just for the purpose of covering the whole discussion, right? That Kabbalah has many, not just many explanations to it, but many different types of explanations to it. Like, some people explain Kabbalistic concepts by pointing out their parallels in the way the world runs. And they explain ideas as the metaphysical underpinnings for the natural laws, right, or certain types of hashgacha that we experience. That's pretty much the approach of the Ramchal and the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon. Hasidus, in particular, looked for what is it in the person. So, in their trying to decode these ideas, they also made it very, for lack of a better word, practical, in the sense that they point out the counterpart of the concept of chesed. What is chesed in the person? And a lot of the Hasidic metaphors, they are trying to explain Kabbalistic ideas in terms of the human and human events, because and that's totally legit, because man is created b'tselem Elokim, man, and in his construct and in his affairs parallels. That's why man's called Olam Katan. Even the Rishonim have spoken about this idea. Man is called a small mini universe, and Hasidus takes the unique approach of explaining Kabbalistic concepts by pointing out their parallels in human events, and hence a person also could try to conduct himself and his affairs in line with these elevated concepts. right? That's Hasidus. Rav Kook said, my approach to Kabbalah is to explain Kabbalistic ideas in terms of the nation. That's also the famous Hasidic thinker Hillel Zeitlin that said that about Rav Kook. Rav Kook shows, how the Jewish nation is a embodiment of all the ideas that Kabbalah talks about. Hasidus looked at the individual man. The Vilna Gaon and Ramchal looked at the world, right, and tried to explain Kabbalah from that angle. Rav Kook looked at the nation. Okay, good. So very much, one could say that Rav Kook's approach was a Hasidic approach. And another thing to be said is that many Hasidim agreed with him. This history kind of, I should say the ones who record history for the Orthodox circles kind of, covered this over. But there are many rebbes that agreed with Rav Kook and felt that his approach is perfectly in line with Hasidus. Particularly, an outstanding example is the brother of the Chovos HaTalmidim, the brother of Clarence Kalman of Piasetzna. His brother, Rabbi Yishayel Shapiro, was also called the Admor HaChalutz, the pioneering rebbe. Right? He made Aliyah, and he made himself a Talmud of Rav Kook, and he was a brother of a rebbe, the son of a rebbe, from a very staunch rabbinical background, and he felt that Rav Kook took Hasidus to another level, even though Rav Kook was not necessarily born Hasidic. Kfar Hasidim, right? Where the famous yeshiva is. I think now they're called Rechasim, right? It was founded by Hasidim. There was, there are different rabbis that made Aliyah. It's my good friend from my Ner Yisrael days, Penny Donner, has a very interesting video presentation, and he also wrote it out at length about I believe it's called the Ladover Rebbe. He was from, it was an offshoot of Mudgets. He was one of the co-founders of Kfar Hasidim. So his family name was Taub. Look it up. Once upon a time, there were a lot of Hasidim that were on board for this. Like I said, this Admor HaChalutz, the brother of the Chovos HaTalmidim, right? He was the first one to actually publish a book describing Rav Kook's thought, called the Eretz Chayfetz, masterful work, great stuff. He was a very good exponent of Rav Kook's thought, and he very much felt it was consistent with everything he learned from Hasidus, him being the brother of a Rebbe, the son of a Rebbe. Okay, so where do people differ? All right. So, like I said in last session, right, I'm not a Satmar Chassid, and I dabbled very, very cursorily with the Vayol Moshe of the Satmar Rebbe. So I can't call myself an expert by any way, shape, or form. Right, but suffice to say that where some people felt that Rav Kook was even going too far past Chassidus, and I take this from things that I heard over the years from my Rebbe Motzei Shapiro, from something that I read from the Imre Emes, who was on cordial terms with Rav Kook, right? Something I heard from a Rebbe of mine, with Nachum Lansky, well, what I've gleaned over where some, people disagree with Rav Kook, even if they were Kabbalistically informed, even if they were Hasidically inclined, they still disagreed with Rav Kook's, approach is in two things. First of all, right, even when Hasidus seeks to see the potential for good in everything, even something that's seemingly bad, nonetheless, you still treat the bad as bad until it becomes good, right? You don't jump the gun. You don't treat the bad as good, no matter how much potential for good you see in it. Right? While something is still bad, you treat it as such. You just have that optimism, and you engage in a type of kiruv, but but still, not overlooking anything. Right? And they felt that Rav Kook was crossing that line. Rav Kook, from his perspective, felt he wasn't. Right? And he was only being makar of those that he felt, were ready. We're ready, or he took the line that he took, just in order to have a peaceful coexistence. But he never whitewashed anything. So those who opposed him felt that he was treating the evil as good because of its potential for good, and you don't do that. As much as Hasidus sees the potential for good, everything, it's evil until it actually changes. Right? That I could say, I think that could be said generally speaking. More specifically, the Imre Emes, who dialogued with Rav Kook about this. The Imre Emes was, an Agudist, so maybe not to the extreme of Satmar and Munkach, but certainly not Mizrahi, like the Admor Chalutz is a Mizrahi activist. Many Hasidim were Mizrahi back then, right? So the Imre Emes said about Rav Kook's ideas that there's holy sparks in these people and in this movement. He said as follows: their holy sparks are only of consequence when they do tshuva. But until they do tshuva, so these holy sparks are totally dormant and inactive. Right, so that's my understanding, but let the historical record reflect that many Hasidim were pro-Zionist back in the day, and were very much felt that Kook's philosophy was consistent with theirs. Whatever, just over the years, that flavor of Hasidus, those Hasidic dynasties, did not, strike root, or maybe they changed their minds. I can't tell you. All right. That's to finish the question from Abe A from last week. Okay, so now the floor is open. Any new questions for this week? First new question for this week. Waiting. Let's see something on the screen. Come on, don't be bashful. All right. You're using a screen name. I don't see you, so you could ask whatever's on your mind. All right. We don't get a question in the next 10 seconds, I'll proceed to say avort. Come on, anyone have a question that's on their mind? Yeah, I think I scared someone away from the room. This is the Hashkafa Hotline. You ask in real time any question that is on your mind. Okay, somebody just... I'm seeing something over here. I'm sorry. I must apologize. I didn't realize that there are questions on the screen. My brother says, since he is older than me, there's something that says I must honor him. Is that true? Does that mean must him like my parents just because he was born first? Okay. Yes, it is true. There is it's learned out. It's learned out from a pasuk. Kabed es avicha ve'es imecha. The actual honor it could have just said kaved avicha. Right? Why is the extra word es? Your father, the father, as it were. The pasuk is so es l'rabos achicha agadol. All right, so the es is to include your older brother. Right? So it's learned out of that extra word. Now, everyone agrees it's not the same level as your parent. There's also an issue of descent. There are Rishonim that hold that halacha of your older brother is specific to the Bechor, the firstborn. There's a shita like that. That it's only the firstborn, not necessarily any. Let's say there's a firstborn, a girl, or it's not the, let's say, a middle child that's older than the younger child, right? So the concept definitely exists. I cannot tell you the exact parameters of it. Everyone agrees it's not the same as your parents, but I will tell you one interesting idea to delineate between the honor one must give an older sibling and a parent. Interesting halacha l'maaseh, right? But that part of we have two different obligations to honor our parents, right? We have to honor kabed, right? Which means to do as he says and help him out and this and that. Right, but there's also ishimo vaviv tira'u. You have to have awe and fear of your parents, which means you don't contradict them. If they say something to you, right? You don't sit in their place, right? You don't sit in their place, right, at the table. Now the Torah only said, you know, kabed es, right? The added obligation, to honor an older sibling, which may only be the firstborn, and it seems to only be the brother, not the sister, seemingly, right? But you ask your local Orthodox rabbi, right? But the where the Torah said to give honor to the older sibling, right, the older brother, achicha gadol, is only by that pasuk of showing respect, helping him out, right? That type of thing. Not by there's no allusion to honoring the older sibling in the pasuk that talks about fearing the parents. So it comes out like this: that what you're allowed to contradict your older brother in an argument, because that's learned out of the prohibition, that you must never do anything that contradicts having awe of your parents. So don't contradict them. But that pasuk doesn't allude to the honor to an older sibling. So you can contradict. You can have an argument with him, and say, no, you're wrong. Don't call him crazy, because that's not nice to any human being. You could contradict your older sibling. You could sit in his place. Matter of fact, a very cute story I'll tell you. Is that the Brisker Rav, Reb Chaim's son? The Reb Chaim had two sons. Two male. He had other kids also. Right, so he had a son, Rav Moshe, who was the father of Rabbi Soloveitchik from Boston, YU. So it's Rav Moshe and Rav Velvel. It's called the Brisker Rav. So Rav Moshe was older. Rav Velvel, the Brisker Rav, was younger. So once some Talmidim of Reb Chaim came home, came into the house of Reb Chaim, saw Reb Velvel, the Brisker, future Brisker Rav, sitting in his older brother's seat. And they said, Achicha Gadol. And they said, typical Brisker fashion, he's just a little kid. Nein, Tzvei Dinim and Kibud Av. No, there's two different halachas in Kibud Av. There's Kibud and Mora, right? There's to honor and to be in awe and fear, right? And the pasuk, that alludes to honoring the older sibling, right? That pasuk is by Kabe, right? The active, being nice, right? The thing about being in fear and not sitting in their place or not contradicting them. The Torah did not drop a buzzword to include the older brother, so therefore I'm not in violation of anything by sitting in my older brother's seat. All right. So in short, there's not a practical halacha for him. Practical halacha, you always should ask the rabbi that you go to for all your halacha questions. But it is true. It is true that an older brother deserves respect, not like a parent. The main difference being that there's no chiyuv of awe and fear like there is, and therefore you could argue with him. You could sit in his seat. But there is kabed. And I would like to refer you to your local Orthodox rabbi to get the details of what type of honor you have to give your older sibling. Okay. Yeah. So going on, the same person asks, why do I? Oh man, a lot of questions coming in fast and furious. Okay. So now, why must I honor my parents just because they brought me in the world? I didn't ask to be born. All right. Okay. You didn't ask to be born. You want to be killed. Would you like to die? Chazal allude to this. It's the Mishnah says in August, Al kocha ata noilad, Al kocha ata chai, Al kocha ata mes. Right? And then and then therefore you have to be aware you're going to give judgment, right? It was a yeah, you live against your will and you die against your will, and now you're going to give divine judgment. You don't have to ask a question about your parents. Ask about God Himself. You didn't ask to be created by God either. So the mission of this is actually responding to your question. You might say, that Al Krochachai was not that the Mishnahs inform you of the obvious, that you were created against your will. No one asked you. Al Krochachai wasn't to inform you of that, but rather to say, you say Al Krochachai, so we say Al Krochatames. Right? You would have a legitimate complaint if you really don't want to live, right? But you want to stay alive. Right? So you want to stay alive, right? So now so since you're happy with it, you don't have a claim. I didn't ask to be born. Right? A person that can only begin to have a legitimate claim if he really hates being alive. But al kochatames, you die against your will also. No one wants to die. The Dubna Magid, on that Mishnah, gave more mundane, gave a more relatable, a parable for this. And he said like this: a man walked into a doctor's office, right? The way it goes is like this: a man and wife came into a doctor's office, right? And the man was deaf and she was blind. Okay, man was deaf and she was blind, and the doctor, heals them both. Right. So now the man can hear and the woman can see. All right. What happens? What happens? Right. So they get they get the bill in the mail. Right. But concurrently, something else happens. Because now the wife can see, she sees her husband as, since the last time she saw him, has become very ugly. Right? He did not age well. Ha, right? So she's appalled at the way he looks. And he, because he's deaf, he could finally hear all the time she cusses and complains and curses him out of how he's got to be a better provider, a better husband. Okay. Yeah, right. So their Shalom bias goes, down the tubes because they had Shalom bias. They had a really happy marriage because he couldn't hear her complaints. She couldn't see his ugliness. Great. All right. Then the bill comes from the doctor. So they go back and the doctor say, you want us to pay this bill? You want us to pay this bill? What? No way. You should be paying us. Right? We should be suing you. Right? You ruined our marriage. Because now I hear her kvetching and she sees my ugliness. Right? The doctor says, no problem. I'll make you blind again and I'll make him deaf again. No problem. Right? Hey, whoa, no. Okay, you want to stay that way? You got to pay. All right. So I think that I rest my case. A person would only have a legitimate complaint if a person really, really hated to be alive. But a person who hates to be alive and would rather be dead, right, is a person that needs mental help. Well, most normal people say, it's true, I didn't ask to be created, but once I'm here, I'm glad I'm here. And so therefore, no, no complaints against God, no complaints against your parents. Okay. Another question. Sophia, long time no see. I haven't seen you since last year in the Marco Polo. I'll get your question next. There's just one where we go in order. The student left one more question. My brother says modern Orthodoxy is a perversion of Torah. It is conservative. Just they keep more mitzvahs. Says Rabbi, I agree with this assessment. Oh man, there's not a political forum. You know, someone, I think it was you also, that asked me on Thursday about neo-Hasidism. Yeah, I don't like labels. I don't believe in them. I don't think they're accurate, right? And these labels, I think they just really ruin us because people, they people need friends, and if there's a label that encompasses them, right? So people have to like compromise their views that they don't really believe in the name of the social grouping that they're a member of, even though they're far, far away. Look, what is modern orthodoxy? I don't think the modern. I'm willing to bet you put 10 mod people that identify as modern orthodox in a room together, they won't agree what modern orthodoxy is. I'm willing to bet. I mean, if you randomly select, you know, don't take 10 guys from the same class at Yeshiva University who also hang out together, in the dorms. No. Of course, you're taking 10 guys from an echo chamber. No, you take 10 random people from any institution that would identify as modern Orthodox, or from 10 different modern Orthodox institutions. And I guarantee you, right, that you will get 10 different definitions of modern Orthodox, right, from each and every one. Especially if you interview them privately, right, so they don't have to like be embarrassed in front of any of his friends. You have great people like Rav Herschel Schachter, who's makbid, on halacha, very, very, very scrupulous. He's a big posek. Not only that, not to put them necessarily on the same level at all, but my roommate in Ner Yisrael when I was a bacher went to hear Rabbi Riskin, who no one would necessarily think of him and Rav Herschel Schachter together, right? Very different type of personality, who said very loudly, modern orthodoxy is not about mixed swimming and it's not about compromised values. My friend, my roommate was at that shmooze, right? It's not about compromised values. It's not about that at all, right? It's about certain openness to secular knowledge and this and that. All right, so if that's so, yeah, you have two modern Orthodox rabbis. One is a big posek. No one may not be a posek like Rav Herschel Schachter, but he's a well-known Mara. That both say, and I don't know, and Rav Herschel Schachter certainly conducted himself. Said it's got nothing to do with leniencies in halacha, right? So that being the case, why should I think modern Orthodox is wrong? Right? I know that some people think that being modern Orthodox means certain laxities in halacha, right? And I think these modern Orthodox people that believe it's some kind of laxity in halacha or laxity in Jewish philosophy that we could, as it were, God forbid, deviate from our tenets of faith. You should ask them why they think that, because there's plenty of modern Orthodox that don't think that way. So the bottom line is modern Orthodoxy is, for lack of a word, a big tent that has a lot of people that really should not be fitting under the same tent. But whatever. People need friends, so they all hang out together. But it's not to say that they all think the same way. All right, so that's the best I could do with your question. Let's go to Sophia's question. All right. I feel that this test requiring the epidemic requires more strength than many have. I do understand that Hashem treats us on a level where we can get through the challenge. As there continue part two. Okay. All right, look, Sophia Tamarkin did not finish her question, but I'll start talking about the coronavirus. Just the same. The Rambam brings the Hilchos Tshuva, the third parak, right? That he makes it very clear that there's judgment on the individual, and there's judgment on the city, the state, and the whole world. Uh, so, and yeah, and not always are they in sync. Right? Abraham Avinu tried to save Stone, and he could not make an argument to save Stone, but Lot got saved. Thanks to Abraham more than anyone else, probably. Not just thanks to Abraham, but thanks to Abraham also in the sense that Lot was, from him came, Ammon and Moab, from which came, Rus, from which came David HaMelech, right? And Naama Amonis, right? Right. So you see, the town could go down, and the individual's righteous. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the individual's righteous, but if he wants to stick with the town, he'll go down with the town. Like if Lot would have refused to leave Stone, we would have gone down with Stone. All right. So that the Vilna Gaon says that this is the reason why running away, let's say in war, do we say that every bullet has its address? Right? So why should I run away if my name's on that bullet? God forbid, right? So what's the point of running away? Not necessarily. The Vilna Gaon says this. Not necessarily, because there's the din on the individual, and there's the din on the collective. And it could be that you're going to go down with the collective ship because you're a part of them. But that's why running away, separating yourself, could help. That's why running away could help. Because a person may, as an individual, may not have a death sentence upon him. But as a member of society, it goes down to society that's being judged. So now, what's very complicated about this coronavirus is, a magefa, right? When there's these types of things that are sweeping, right? So, the ones that, for lack of a better word, had it coming anyway, and they're in on Rosh Hashanah as individuals. Right? So, social distancing, which is not surefire, as we know, we're learning now that many more people were affected than we realize. Oh, because we're finding in New York, they're finding antibodies. It says 2 million people in New York were affected, right? So, this virus is going, well, and which makes us realize also it's not as lethal as we thought, thank God, right? Still more dangerous than the flu for a variety of reasons, but it's no, but the point is like this, right? An individual that had a death sentence upon him on Rosh Hashanah, the virus is going to kill, right? There are people that, and social distancing is not going to help. Now we see it hasn't actually stopped the virus totally. It mitigates. The person that doesn't have a death sentence on him, literally, unintended, social distancing to separate himself from society that is clearly being affected. And we see that, that there's a din also on society is so obvious, because even a person doesn't actually get sick, but the economy, right, and the shuls and social life is being shut down. So we're dealing with something very, very complex, right? That individuals, there's any individual that is being audited for what he's done wrong is going to be definitely highly vulnerable at this time of plague. But a person also not so bad, but since there is now a time of din where society in general is being audited, right? So they open his books also, right? And depending on how righteous he is in his personal life, for him, social distancing may work and prevent him from getting sick. Right? There's no question that it's a terrible time of din in the world, and I don't think obviously the foot we have to put forward first is doing our ishtadlus to stay safe and stay healthy, which is a Torah value. It's the mitzvah to do whatever we can to preserve our health, right? on the one hand, and on the other hand, the rapid we contradict on Rapos, the Torah gave, really authorized and gave the doctors real power to heal. So we have to heed our medical advisors, right? If they're saying things to the best of their professional knowledge, we have an obligation to look and safeguard ourselves. So, obviously the rabbis, keeping the shuls closed and warning us to keep social distancing, they're doing the right thing. We shouldn't second guess them. It's not any lack of faith on their part, because that's what Torah says. Torah demanded from us to do what we can to protect ourselves and to heed the advice of the experts. Right? Especially when they're giving us hope. V'rape. It's a very important word to remember. Does going to a doctor contradict faith? I'll tell you in what way. Some would argue it's a machlokas Rambam and Ramban. Whether the higher level is not to go to a doctor at all or not. I don't know if the Ramban really argues with the Rambam on that. I have to review that sugya, but I can tell you one thing, right? That and I've seen this in Sfarim, right? Rapi Tam Shnitan Rofer Rishus Larapos, right? And he shall be healed with from here the double option Rapi. The Rofer will be Marapa is the way the Gemara understands to read it, right? The doctors were given divine permission, divine authorization to heal, but only to heal, not to hurt, right? So if a doctor says you're terminal, forget about it. It's hopeless. You don't listen to him. He didn't get divine authorization to give you bad news or to take away your hope. He only got divine authorization to heal, right? So if you go to a doctor, it's not a lack of faith, in the sense that, because God, the Torah says he was given for heal, but for a person being healed. But if you lose all hope because of your doctor, that's a lack of emunah and bitachon, because the Torah never authorized him to be the bearer of bad news or to declare something hopeless. He was given authorization to heal, not to make hopeless. Okay. So again, so the rabbis, which again, I'm not speaking from my limited experience. I'm living here in the 5 times Far Rockaway area, and it's all about chin up and keep the social distancing, stay home, stay lives, right? But and this may be going on. I'm just not aware. But what needs to be done is we believe that everything is reward and punishment. Everything is bashgacha pratis. So aside from doing our divinely mandated commands of preserving our health based on the advice of constructive advice of the doctors, right? We have to realize that the real cause for this is that we're guilty of whatever sins we're guilty of. And what's really going to make it go away is tshuva, repentance. And here's the complicated thing that about, since we see that this thing is affecting individuals and society as a whole. So we know we're not just being audited as individuals, we're also being audited as a society. So that's why a person, everyone should always run to do tshuva immediately. But it'll take a great merit to get out of this totally unscathed. In a sense, your health won't be affected, your mental health won't be affected, your finances won't be affected. You're going to need a lot of merit, right? Because you're a member of society, and society also has this plague upon it. Right? The real antidote to the plague is to get a tshuva movement going, not just individuals should do tshuva. Of course, individuals should do tshuva, but we have to shoot for more than that. And that is that society as a whole should reevaluate itself. And in this forum, on this channel, my pre-Pesach, shir in my Shabbos Haggadah drasha, I addressed this issue. I addressed this issue very strongly and staunchly. That if social distancing and which is dissolving society, right? Particularly where we congregate in our shuls and our schools. These are our, I'll lack of a better word, our echo chambers. Means Hashem's not happy. with the way the schools and shuls are running. Right? And we have to reevaluate. And the truth is like this. I'll just, I see, I want to give time for other questions also. We talk about reopening the country and getting back to normal. Is that really normal? The way we were before this pandemic hit, was that normal? No, it wasn't normal. Right? It was society may have accepted it, and God is clearly making a statement. He doesn't like society as it is. So he dissolved society with this pandemic. Right? Right? It's very clear God is because the world as it is not a good place. There's no Beis HaMikdash in the world. There's no prophets in the world. There's no prophecy. There's no justice in the world. All the things that we want with the coming of Mashiach, the restoration of prophecy, the restoration of absolute justice, right? Absolute justice with no free passes for any people of great influence, right? Justice for the widows and for the orphans, right? The revelation of the divine presence, the basic mitzvot of korbanos. All these things are missing from God's world. Right? And God wanted a world like that. As I'll say, Hashem wanted a world that he would dwell in. Right? And he's not dwelling in this world. Right? He doesn't have an embassy here. Right? He doesn't have his Beis HaMikdash. Right? So, until we understand that life before the pandemic was not normal by Jewish standards, we're still in exile. That's not normal. There's no Beis HaMikdash in the world. That's not normal. So getting back to normal is getting back to the real normal. So I think that we should set our sights higher, and that's the tshuva that we have to do as individuals and as a society, that we should not want to get back to the way it was before Purim, before the pandemic, became common knowledge. And, as much as, the economy was doing well then, we shouldn't want that. We should want to get, that when everything reopened, we go for the gold of a Beis HaMikdash, of Mashiach Tzidkenu, and until that happens, if it doesn't happen immediately, to at least want Mashiach badly, like we're supposed to, want it badly, and to sharpen up our mitzvah observance, right? That would be the appropriate response to the pandemic. And if we make those convictions now, both as individuals, but as a society at large, I'm sure the pandemic would end immediately. Right? The problem is that since the din is on society also, not just on individuals, a few individuals could do tshuva, and that will help them greatly. But to get rid of the global aspect of the pandemic, that society has to do its tshuva. I hope I'm being clear, and I welcome to be questioned more about this. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, Sophia, I can only reiterate what we said, that sadly, you're talking about good people. That's what we alluded to, that when there's a din on society, and Hashem judges as a society, good people go down with the ship. Like I said, Lot would have refused to leave stone, he would have gone down with stone, right? Where the individual is good, but society is rotten, that will save the individual if the individual, totally scoops himself up out of society. Then it'll help. But otherwise, when there's a din on society, righteous individuals go down with the society. Sad, but it's the truth. But they don't have to go down to society. They could run away, and that'll work if there's a place to run. Problem is, there's a global pandemic, and Hashem is expressing his displeasure with the way the world is running. It's very sad. Right? And the Rambam writes, there's right there in Hilchos Tshuva, din on the individual, din on the city, on the state, and on the whole damn world. Pardon my French. By the way, we spoke about that in that same address that I referenced a few years ago, my pre-Shabbos Hagadol address, Bechhofer. I brought the Rambam in Hilchos Des that says, indeed, you shouldn't wait for the last minute. A righteous person that sees that society around him is rotten should leave society. Move, relocate, find a place to move. If you don't have a place to move, Go live in a cave. Go live in the desert. Right? Don't be a part of evil society. You understand that, there's a certain, it's not just a logistical necessity that if a town is going to be destroyed and you insist on staying down, you're going to go down with the town. There is a certain element of justice, because if you saw your town going wonky, going off the derech, right, off the straight path, and you didn't relocate, that's your. See, if you didn't learn, even if you kept your values, right, and you weren't influenced, you're not supposed to be living there. So that's why there's an aspect of real justice. The righteous man going down with the town that he refuses to leave. Why? Why are you refusing to leave? You're chayav to leave. All right. I don't know if I'm going to be very popular tonight. Go ahead. Any other questions? All right. Any other questions? By the way, I read whatever's on the screen. If you disagree with me, you could post your objection on the screen. I'll be happy to read it and relate to it. Right? Do we have any other questions? Do we have any other questions? Just checking my email in case someone emailed the question in. Because everyone's being quite tame tonight. Last time we had last Thursday night, people were a little bit, being a little bit more feisty. Any more questions? Really, this is your chance. Really, Chabal. I would have thought that there's an opportunity people would really want to grab. Right, not judging anybody. I don't see who you are. You could say whatever you want. No problem. Anyone have a question they want to discuss? All right. All right, so I can only reiterate in the meantime until another question gets on the yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let me. I'll deal with the question just came on the screen in just momentarily in just 1 second. The damn. I just want to reiterate that I have a Sphere reader. That if everyone's cooped up at home, I have a Sphere reader that could be downloaded for free or viewed online at my website evitsia.com, which you see in the upper left corner of the screen. Upper left corner, right? Now I'm pointing at it, right? So just go there and read the Sphere reader. We'll be putting out another one for Shavuos Bezras Hashem, and at the website there's hundreds of audios, videos, and printed materials that can be downloaded on the entirety of Chumash and on the Yom Tovim and on many topics. Please go to the website and enjoy. Okay, the Rambam. Why was he radical in his day? Well, now look, I'm a Rambamist. I am very much a Rambam guy, so I'm kind of inclined to his side of the argument, which I think most people agree that most of the controversy surrounding the Rambam has ultimately, the Rambam's been vindicated, right? So now, look, there are the big controversies and there are the little controversies, all right? Right. So now the big controversy, let's start with the little one. The little one. Okay. Which I think by and large it was people, it was sour grapes, but I don't, it wasn't the raging fire, right? People were, people, did not appreciate, his Mishnah Torah, his Yada Chazaka. Whether they disagreed with its rulings, whether they thought that it's an incomplete work because he doesn't say why he says what he says, right? Whether they thought that, it's kind of a chutzpah that he's coming to supplant the Gemara, right? That people should learn his book instead of the Gemara, which, there's like a little bit of, I have a whole shear on this, by the way, go to my website. I have a whole share. Did the Rambam plan to supplant the Talmud? And I deal with what the Rambam was really saying. He did not mean to supplant the Talmud, but he did indeed consider that Talmud should be only for the people who do it right, and everyone else should learn his book. And I proved that. But he was accused of trying to supplant the Talmud. Right? He was. People were upset he didn't give the reasons for it. He only says the psak. Sometimes people disagreed with his psak. Right now, even the Ravid, who falls in the latter category, he disagreed with the Rambam, but the Ravid in a few places writes, as much as he's very critical here and there, but the Rambam, he actually mentions in one of the places. Over also, he did an amazing accomplishment, collating all the work. So that was the issues surrounding the Mishnah Torah. Which in the Mishnah Torah, caught on. But that's that was the controversy surrounding the Mishnah Torah. Whether he's supplanting the Talmud, he doesn't explain why he passed the way he passed, or he just disagree with the way he passed it, and that was the relatively, from my perspective, when I read, what went on, and that was the smaller machlokas, and I think he had a few opponents over there. I think his main opponent regarding that, the Mishnah Torah was the Rosh Hashiva in Baghdad. That was his main opponent that totally kind of dissed the Mishnah Torah, right? And it was a controversy. I don't think it was certainly not his biggest controversy, right? Where the Rambam was a lot more attacked. Was for things that he wrote in Sefer Hamada, right, and in his Moreh Nevuchah. So now there are things that were shown to be misunderstandings, and there are things that were shown to be, not just, there are things. Let's say like this: everything was coming from my perspective. I'm a Rambam proponent. I'm a Rambam fan, right? What can I say? That's my orientation. That was the orientation of my Rabbi, of Yaakov Weinberg and Moshe Shapiro. Moshe Shapiro give us long shiurim showing how the Rambam is perfectly consistent with long shiur from my Rabbi Moshe Shapiro. Right. So talking from my perspective, the Rambam was falsely accused in error of denying the resurrection of the dead, because he writes in the Mishnah Torah that in the Olam Haba there's no body, even though he made it one of his 13 ikrim. And for that reason, he wrote the Igeres Tchias HaMesim. He wrote the Igeres Tchias HaMesim, explaining, of course, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. It's one of my 13 ikarim, except that people die again before Olam Haba, and there's no body in Olam Haba. So you're resurrected, you do your mitzvahs, and then the body is discarded again before we go to our final world of reward. And that remains a machlokas. That remains a machlokas between the Rambam and many of the Mekubalim, right? All, right? That but he was falsely accused. People misunderstood and thought they didn't believe in resurrection of the dead at all, right? So that the Rambam himself debunked. But then it remains at machlokas. And by the way, in that, myself, who am I, right? But my Rabbeim and the two generations did not vindicate the Rambam on that idea. The accepted view is that there is a body in Olam Haba. However, the body becomes totally spiritual and integrated with the neshama. And there's many philosophical reasons why we have to say that can't be a body as we know it. And once you say that, by the way, that the body will exist in Olam Haba, it'll become spiritualized. It'll evolve into a spiritual being, no less spiritual than the neshama. Once you say that, all the Rambam's objections as to why there can't be, a body in Olam Haba all fall off. Right? The Rambam will say there can't be a body as we know it. Now, it's true. It would be a stark revisionism to say that the Rambam meant the same thing as the Kabbalists, that the body's there, just it's in a spiritual form, because he doesn't say that. He just understood. He thought that that people believe there should be a body as we know it in Olam Haba, and Rambam gives many reasons why that cannot be. And the truth is, the model that we accept that there is a body, but the body becomes spiritual, actually answers all of the objections that the Rambam had to, well, so that remains a machlokas, but he was falsely accused for a while of not believing in resurrection at all, right? Which is why he wrote his Igeres Chesed. Right, but then there's, the things that he wrote about God in Sefer Hamada and in the Moreh Nevuchim, that God has no form, right? And you should know that in the days of the Rambam, many, we mentioned the Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah Torah was the first all-inclusive body of law we had in our history. You realize that? And the Rambam makes mention of it, that it's amazing how Jewish people went for thousands of years not having a complete code of law, right? Astounding, right? And the people like the Maharal and the Marshal were okay with that, and they said no, we should still try to go back to the Gemara, and however we understand the sugya, that's the halacha, and there shouldn't be a complete code of law, except for the ignorant, right? It's amazing. So that's part of going overlaps with why there was a push against the Mishnah Torah. Well, the way the sugya comes out according to you, that's your halacha. And the way it was that way, just like it was that way with halacha, and pretty much so the Rambam wrote a complete code. The Gaonim before him started writing partial codes of law, right? There was also a way in Hashkafa and what we believe. You learned the Psukim in Tanakh. You read what Chazal say, and you try to, just like in halacha, you put the sugya together to come up with a psak. In Hashkafa also, put the psukim together with the Chazals. It's a sugya. And you come out with what the Torah is instructing you to believe about the existence of God, the omnipotence of God, and how he is only one. Right? So a lot of people, did not do that work. They applied themselves to halacha, and working out how to sugya, but they applied themselves to Jewish philosophy, and they erroneously thought that God had a body, or some type of form, spiritual form, but we believe God has no form. So they, many people were against the Rambam for that, out of their, sadly, their total error and ignorance of the tenets of Judaism, because they just didn't have expertise in those areas. You can't compare life after the Rambam to life before the Rambam. The Rambam came on the scene, laid out our 13 principles of faith, which I wrote a classic work on. The Evan Shasi on Yud Gimel Ikar, it's in Hebrew, translation pending. The Rambam did such a service, laid out the raw principles of faith every Jew has to believe in, wrote a complex philosophical work to give us more of a expanded Jewish philosophy in his Moreh Nevuchim. He considered the Emunus V'Deis of Tzaddik Gaon that came before him as inadequate, because it's kalam, it's not, right? Without getting into all details, right? So there are things that the Rambam said that, has been totally vindicated. Right, the Kabbalists came on the Rambam side, right? The later authorities said the Rambam got it right. Some people just were, unknowing or misinterpreted or misread. And another thing about the Moreh Nevuchim is that they were where he writes this is a mashal, that's a mashal. The Psukim has to be taken literally. People started suspecting. Maybe he thinks all the stories in the Bible are just metaphors, and there wasn't really Adam and Chava, or there wasn't really, all the different kids of Adam, Arisha, God forbid, which Ram never said. Ram never said anything like that. All right, so there was, so that's what it was. Now what was so like what never got totally vindicated. As a matter of fact, just like I said, regarding the issue of a body in the world to come. Well, as much as we vindicated the Rambam, and the Rambam is one of the greatest Jews that ever lived, right? But still, we take the opposing side, that there is a body in the world to come, just that it's a spiritual body. But it's the body that we have converted to spiritual, right? And it assimilates with the neshama, right? So we don't take the Rambam too that the body, that people die again and the body is discarded totally, right? Same thing over here. Another thing regarding this is that the Rambam felt that Aristotle's thinking is very straight and worked out. He had a few things wrong, but his system of thought is by and large, straightforward and and could be synthesized with Torah. felt that the Aristotle proved himself on a lot of issues, right? Not the issues that we disagree with. Ram took great issue with Aristotle, the topic of the second section of the guide of the Mar Nevuchim, right? That of course, we believe in Yesh Me'ayin. Hakadosh created the world ex nihilo, as opposed to Aristotle thinks that matter was always around, matter was coexistent with God, right? So Zoram was not afraid to argue on Aristotle. He wasn't afraid, and he did. He did plenty, right? And he loved Chazal. He loved Chazal and preferred Chazal over the philosophers, sure, right? But nonetheless, he felt that the Aristotelian system is, by and large, correct and should be used and implemented in our understanding of Torah and our understanding of metaphysics also. So that hasn't been resolved. First of all, Aristotle's been discredited. It's even people that would call themselves Rambamistim. They're not about to say Aristotle's right when it's been scientifically discredited. With Copernicus, Newton. So much of Aristotle's physics and astronomy, astronomy is working with a lot of it. A lot of it goes out the window, right? But we have since decided that we should. That we don't need secular philosophy, to have a complete appreciation of Judaism, because we were zocheh that the Kabbalah, the Zohar, was revealed, in the days of the Rajba, and the Zohar has been revealed and has been explained, and we don't need secular philosophy at all in any way, shape, or form, right? But in his day, it also was about, should we use the secular stuff or not? So there's issues that which the debate still stands, but everyone's respectful of both sides. There are issues that where the issue got out of hand, and the Rambam has since been vindicated because the people cannot properly appreciate what he said in his day. So listen, are you surprised? Look at the Ramchal. The Ramchal had a miserable life. Now he's like one of the holiest Jews that ever lived. In his day, he had a little handful of people that believed in him, right? It happens. Look at Chassidus. Chassidus has been vindicated. So this is not uncommon that in hindsight you appreciate the greatness of a person. Sad story, a sad fact of human affairs. After a person's dead and gone, you look back and realize how great he was, how great she was, and you kick yourself for not properly appreciating them in their own lifetime. All right. I get very little feedback from you as I'm talking, so I hope my answer satisfied you. We're really out of time. All right, I think I explained everything. All right, everyone, a good vach, source taivas. Keep safe. But the main thing is we all have to do cheshbon nefesh. What tshuva do we have to do? How can we positively, influence whoever we're connected to in society, that they should improve themselves also? And let's go for the gold. Let's not just improve ourselves to get the pandemic passed. Let's go for the gold. Let's improve ourselves to be zocheh to Mashiach tzidkeinu b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen. A good vach, everybody.